The average human being can see upwards of 2.4 million colors. There are some human beings who can see upwards of 10 million colors. But the real interesting thing is there are a couple hundred people who have lived over the last couple hundred years who are able to see 100+ million colors. They're like almost like superhumans. And speaking of superhumans, there are blind people throughout this world who navigate their world through the click of a tongue, much like we've seen or heard bats and dolphins do. They make a noise with their tongue that sends out a vibration in the world, and then that helps them navigate their world. These things are amazing for us to hear and for us to consider, and it makes me think, like, what are we truly capable of? Like, what are the things that would get us closer to ultimately testing our capacity? On the 7 Minutes to Better Selling podcast, which we host every Thursday, yesterday we had a gentleman on there by the name of Matt Johnson from On Target Living. And he talked about these three strategies that when we implement them, they ultimately expand our capacity. Not like because he thinks it might happen, but because science proves it happens. And what's interesting is all three of them are like really easy to execute on, which is awesome. And the first two are like really fun. So the first one is take a micro break. Every hour, spend 5 to 10 minutes purely on yourself. Focus on your breathing. Focus on your stretching. Just relax and live in your own world. That's thought one. They're called micro breaks. They help us operate at a higher level. In fact, when you take 10 minutes and do this, and you compare the productivity of the average human being, the ones who take micro breaks are more effective or more productive in the hour than those who don't. In other words, the ones who don't work an extra 10 minutes and they're less effective. Second thought is get out and take a walk, in particular, a walk in nature. When we do that, our days become more productive. We only need to do it once, and it only needs to be for 5 or 10 minutes. But if we get out and are able to walk in the woods or walk in the trails, when we come back, we are actually capable of delivering a higher level of output. Pretty amazing thought. In other words, two fun things that we think, geez, we can't do that. We're too busy. They ultimately help us get more done. They ultimately help us be more productive. They ultimately help us deliver like a better product out to the rest of the world. And then lastly is exercise. And exercise lasts 45 minutes. The exercise has to last 45 minutes or longer. And if it lasts 45 minutes or longer, we come back and are able to contribute better to the world and better to our professional lives. If in fact we go out and exercise for 45 minutes. I recognize that last one's pretty hard for some people, but those first two are really, really easy to do. So my takeaway is this, is like we all would probably like to like scratch the surface of what we're ultimately capable of. And those first two things are easy to do and fun to do. And if we put them in our lives, we will be a better human being. Now, we won't necessarily notice like all components of it, although we will notice our productivity. But over time, you will see that studies prove literally the blood pressure goes down. People around you start treating it differently because you are a human being altogether. And so the thought process is a simple one. Is can you take these first two, try them for a couple of weeks. You try them for a couple of weeks, you see how much better you operate, and ultimately make a habit out of them. Good selling, everyone.